B&B spoilers. Ridge hurts the ones he loves. Eric treated like Taylor. The bold and the beautiful spoilers document that Ridge Forrester, Torsten K., is again trying to push his adopted father out the daytime door. But Eric Forrester, John McCook, who's been at odds with Ridge before, isn't ready to release the reins of Forrester Creations. Devoted viewers know that Ridge recently broke Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig, heart. While she led the engagement push, he agreed to it, then broke the promise he made. Brooke Logan, Catherine Kelly Lang, remains the one person who forgives Ridge, no matter what he does. He appears to use her as the model that Ridge thinks others should live by. Brooke Logan is the perfect match. Ridge is a grown man, as his chronological age and grayish beard prove. However, in many ways, Kay's character behaves like the boy who never grew up in Los Angeles, California. The relationship he has with Brooke is further proof of Ridge's immature outlook on life. While he's been married an amazing 14 times, the true love of his life tops him in nuptial count at 16. It's reasonable to suggest, if not prove, that the pattern of behavior Brooke and Ridge have engaged in with each other these past decades confirms each person's self-centered take on reality. They are suited for each other because their needs, including the need to be with each other when their spirits so move them, exceed all other people's feelings. Taylor Hayes was hurt the most. Taylor's return from her celebrated overseas career ventures was pointed. She believed congestive heart failure meant the end was near. As it turned out, Taylor was misdiagnosed and was suffering from non-lethal broken heart syndrome. Translated, that meant Ridge treated her as a second love, repeatedly returning to Brooke whenever his undeveloped sense of decency created that shift. So, Taylor wasn't going to remarry Ridge, as fans of this couple, or maybe those who felt sorry for Budig's character, hoped. But that last point deserves further exploration. Ridge Forrester isn't a jerk. It would be wrong to simply bash Ridge. His children and grandchildren mean the world to him. He also wanted to power share Forrester Creations with his daughter, Steffi Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline McInnes Wood. Ridge does care about Taylor, and he also loves the man who adopted him dearly. He's not trying to push Eric out to pasture, but wants his dad to enjoy his life with Donna Logan, Jennifer Garais, during his twilight years. And it's not disrespectful to talk about Eric's age. It's clear-minded and thoughtful. As Eric also knows, he's the one who wanted Ridge and Steffi to run FC so he could become the emeritus chair. So, a fair assessment would be that Ridge has treated his father like Taylor. But no one who knows Ridge could truthfully claim that he wants to hurt either person. He simply loves Brooke, wants to be with her, and also wants to co-head FC, so his dad doesn't have to worry or stress himself. That's another expression of love as well. The air in the Forrester living room, usually thick with the scent of expensive silk and polished mahogany, was suffocatingly heavy tonight. It wasn't the weight of design deadlines or the pressures of the fashion world. It was the unbearable silence of a family waiting for its patriarch to deliver a final, devastating blow. Ridge Forrester stood before them, a study in tailored turmoil. His signature black suit looked less like armor and more like a shroud. He kept his gaze fixed on the antique grandfather clock, avoiding the 3 pairs of eyes that represented his entire universe and his current torment. Brooke Logan, Taylor Hayes, and his father, Eric Forrester. Brooke sat rigidly on the sofa, her hands clasped tightly. Her usual fiery confidence was tempered by a deep, weary apprehension. She had been here 100 times before, waiting for the swing of Ridge's emotional pendulum, but this time felt different, colder. Beside her, Taylor, the picture of quiet dignity in a soft blue dress, looked equally drained. She wasn't fighting anymore. Her hope had calcified into a brittle form of acceptance, ready to shatter but unwilling to break entirely. And then there was Eric, the true patriarch, the heart of the family, sat in his favorite velvet armchair by the fireplace. He wasn't looking at Ridge with anger, but with an expression far more wounding. Profound, sorrowful disappointment. It was the look of an artist watching his most beautiful creation deliberately deface itself. I can't do this again, Ridge finally began, his voice raspy, the sound of tearing silk. I can't keep living this way. It's not fair to either of you, and it's certainly not fair to my life. Brooke leaned forward, a fragile plea in her voice. Ridge, just tell us. We can handle it. We just need to know where we stand and who you choose. Taylor remained silent, her eyes simply following Ridge's movements. She knew the answer wasn't about who he chose, but about who he thought he was capable of choosing. Ridge took a breath that did nothing to calm him. I spoke to the lawyers this afternoon. I'm moving forward with the divorce. With Brooke. It has to be you, Logan. We have a history, a legacy, and I can't walk away from that foundation again. It's too deep. It's to us. The room did not explode. It imploded. Brooke's composed demeanor fractured. Foundation? Ridge, you call this a foundation? This constant, agonizing indecision? This is not a foundation, it's quicksand. But I'm glad. We can move past this. We can heal. She reached out a hand, relief mixing toxicologically with the pain she knew Taylor must be feeling. Taylor flinched, not at Brooke's words, but at the sheer, unyielding pattern of Ridge's behavior. She rose slowly, her movements graceful but heavy. Congratulations, Brooke. I truly hope you find the peace with him that neither of us ever could. She turned her cool gaze to Ridge. I won't ask why. I know why. You always return to the most comfortable misery, Ridge. You gravitate to the fight you know you can win. Goodbye. She started toward the grand double doors, but a quiet, firm voice stopped her. Wait, Taylor. It was Eric. He stood, steadying himself with the arm of the chair. The tension in the room now shifted, tightening around Ridge like a vice. This wasn't about the women anymore. It was about the man he had failed most profoundly. Go ahead, Dad. Say what you have to say, Ridge mumbled, running a hand through his hair. I know I've disappointed you. I always do. Eric's eyes, usually twinkling with mischief or warmth, were granite gray. Disappointment is a luxury, Ridge. This is deeper than disappointment. It's a pattern of destructive indifference. He walked slowly to Ridge, forcing his son to look him in the eye. I know the pain you're putting Brooke and Taylor through. It's the constant, grinding erosion of a spirit, the refusal to value someone until they are gone. But that's not what concerns me tonight, Ridge. What concerns me is that you are treating me the way you have always treated Taylor. Brooke gasped, and even Taylor paused, turning back. The parallel was shocking. Eric continued, his voice low but cutting. You dismiss my ideas at Forrester Creations. You undercut my designs. You talk over me in board meetings. You assume my legacy is an inconvenience you've outgrown. You treat my feelings and my contributions as secondary, as an optional luxury that can be cast aside the moment your path is made slightly uncomfortable. To Taylor. How did you treat Taylor, Ridge? For years? You gave her just enough hope to keep her tethered, but never enough certainty to feel secure. You held her heart hostage, valuing her only when Brooke was unavailable, or when you needed a quiet port in a storm of your own making. You are doing the exact same thing to me now, Ridge. You are treating the patriarch of your family like a backup plan, an old man whose voice can be drowned out by the noise of your romantic life. You treat my authority like a faded photograph, nice to look at, but irrelevant to the present. Ridge visibly recoiled. He had expected anger from Brooke, tears from Taylor, but not this cold, intellectual indictment from his father. Dad, that's not fair. You know I love you. This is about Brooke and me, not work. It's about respect, Ridge, Eric countered, his voice rising slightly. And respect is indivisible. When you don't respect the hearts of the women who adore you, you won't respect the legacy of the man who raised you. The same indifference you show to their feelings, the casual cruelty of treating their devotion as a renewable resource, is the indifference you show to my authority. You make us all feel like Taylor always felt, disposable. Taylor, who had intended to leave, found herself stepping back into the room. Eric's words were a catharsis, articulating the years of quiet anguish she had endured. Brooke, witnessing Eric's vulnerability, felt a surge of protective fury, not for herself, but for her mentor, the man who had given her a place in this dynasty. "He's right, Ridge," Brooke said, standing up. She walked to Taylor and placed a hand gently on her arm. This gesture, a simple, supportive touch, spoke volumes. They were allies in his wake of destruction. This isn't a competition anymore. It's an intervention. You don't love Taylor and you don't love me. You love the idea of being loved and the comfort of having two amazing women perpetually waiting for you to get over yourself. And the ultimate arrogance, Taylor finished, her voice steady, is that you think Eric, the founder of this empire, is just another piece of furniture in the house, ready to be moved when you need space for your chaos. The triple-pronged attack, the wounded patriarch, the pragmatic ex-lover, the furious partner, finally broke through Ridge's polished veneer. "Stop it! All of you, just stop!" Ridge roared, throwing his hands up. He knocked a fragile porcelain figurine off a nearby side table. It shattered on the marble floor with a sound that seemed ridiculously loud in the sudden silence. He stared at the fragments, then down at his hands, his breath ragged. "You're right," he whispered, the admission tasting like ash. "You are all right. I'm a coward. I choose Brooke, because it's the path of least resistance right now, the choice that keeps the loudest historical tie intact, even though I know I still have Taylor in my head, and I'll be back here again in 6 months, inflicting the same damage." He looked at Eric, his eyes welling up. "Dad, I don't see you as disposable. I see you as a mountain, and I feel like I'm suffocating under your shadow. Every time you ask me to respect your vision, I see my own failure to measure up. So I push you away. I treat you like an afterthought, because it's easier than admitting that I still need your approval, and I keep failing to earn it. And Taylor," he continued, turning to the psychologist, "you were the quiet strength, and I am terrified of quiet strength. I needed the drama, the fighting, the passion with Brooke, because the peace with you felt too much, like I didn't deserve it. I reduced your love to a safe harbor, ignoring the fact that a safe harbor requires the hardest thing of all, commitment." His confession was complete, brutal in its honesty. But the honesty didn't heal, it just cauterized the wound. Eric slowly shook his head, his disappointment now laced with pity. "You hurt us because we allow you to, Ridge. And you allow yourself to do it because you fear vulnerability more than you fear being alone." He reached into his suit pocket, pulling out a small, folded piece of paper, a design sketch. "I wanted to show you my new collection idea, but you're too consumed by this self-made tragedy to care about the only thing that actually matters here. The work, the family, the legacy." He tossed the sketch onto the coffee table. It landed near the shattered porcelain. "You can choose Brooke, Ridge, but you don't get to choose us. We are making our own choice now." Eric turned and walked out of the room, his footsteps echoing in the hallway, not looking back. Taylor watched him go, a tear finally tracing a path down her cheek. She approached Ridge, but instead of touching him, she merely picked up one of the porcelain fragments and held it out to him. "You chose Ridge, but you didn't choose a woman. You chose to be a shard, sharp, broken, and incapable of holding anything whole again." She dropped the fragment onto the table, turned and followed Eric, leaving Brooke and Ridge alone in the vast, echoing room. Brooke stood for a moment, her victory tasting like ash. She looked at Ridge, still paralyzed by his own words, then at the empty doorways. This wasn't the fresh start she had imagined. It was the final, devastating chapter of their dysfunction. They were together, yes, but at the cost of the family's foundation and the cost of Eric's spirit. The parallel Eric had drawn, the dismissal of his legacy mirroring the dismissal of Taylor's love, was the final, unforgivable truth. Ridge was left standing amidst the ruins of his own making, the winner of a battle that had destroyed his entire world. The clock ticked loudly, marking the seconds of a life he had just irrevocably fractured. He had finally made his decision, and in doing so, he had ensured that he had lost everything that truly mattered: his father's respect, Taylor's peace, and Brooke's illusion of a happy ending. He was left with only the ghost of a future and the heavy, crushing weight of his own self-hatred. A man who, in his desperate attempt to choose one woman, had driven away everyone he loved. Eric slowly shook his head, his disappointment now laced with pity. "You hurt us because we allow you to, Ridge." Ridge was left standing amidst the ruins of his own making, the winner of a battle that had destroyed his entire world. The clock ticked loudly, marking the seconds of a life he had just irrevocably fractured. He had finally made his decision, and in doing so, he had ensured that he had lost everything that truly mattered: his father's respect, Taylor's peace, and Brooke's illusion of a happy ending. He was left with only the ghost of a future and the heavy, crushing weight of his own self-hatred. A man who, in his desperate attempt to choose one woman, had driven away everyone. Chandeliers of the Forrester Creations main showroom, usually shimmering with the excitement of a new collection or the glint of celebratory champagne, now reflected a tension so thick it could be cut with a shears. It was the annual Legacy of Love Gala, a cruel, ironic name given the circumstances. Just 2 weeks prior, the entire city had watched, rapt, as Ridge Forrester, the man who was supposed to be her destiny, had once again chosen the path of indecision, leaving both Brooke and Taylor reeling in the aftermath of yet another failed reunion attempt. Brooke Logan, dressed in a sleek, sapphire blue gown that defied her grief, stood with a deceptive serenity. She had faced the cameras, the pitying looks of the staff, and the barely concealed smugness of Steffi. She had done it all before, but this time was different. The perpetual cycle of Bridge was, in her heart, irrevocably broken. The constant push and pull, the shared history, the overwhelming passion, it had all burned away, leaving only the ash of exhaustion. "Look at her!" Taylor Hayes whispered to her daughter, Steffi, across the room. "She looks peaceful. Too peaceful." Steffi, ever protective of her mother, scoffed lightly. "It's an act, Mom. She's Brooke. She's probably already lining up the next man, trying to make Dad jealous." Ridge, standing beside them, heard the comment and sighed. He was miserable. He always was when he wasn't with Brooke or when he wasn't with Taylor. He was the perpetual waffler, stuck between the wild freedom of his Logan and the steady calm of his doctor. Seeing Brooke standing alone, radiating an unexpected calm, unnerved him more than if she had been crying or flirting. The reason for the night's extra layer of anticipation wasn't just the latest Bridge breakdown. Brooke had announced, via a surprisingly formal press release from her own foundation, not Forrester Creations, that she would be introducing her perfect match tonight. The city, the fashion world, and most importantly, her family, were in a frenzy of speculation. Was it Bill Spencer making his predictable power play? Was it a surprise return of Nick Marone? Some wilder rumors even suggested she had somehow convinced Eric to leave the perpetually devoted Quinn. The buzz died down as Hope, looking radiant, tapped a microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to a beautiful night. And now, my mother, the incredible, the resilient Brooke Logan." Brooke took the stage, the spotlight finding her like a natural. She didn't launch into a dramatic monologue. She simply smiled, a genuine, quiet smile that didn't seek validation. "Thank you, Hope," she began, her voice steady. "For decades, my life has been an open book, written in collaboration with the most intense, passionate, and yes, sometimes chaotic characters in Los Angeles." A ripple of nervous laughter went through the room, mostly from the Forresters. "The media, my family, and I have always called certain men in my life my destiny. And for a long time I believed it. I chased passion, I chased history, and I chased the idea that love should always feel like a hurricane. She paused, locking eyes with Ridge across the room. His jaw was tight, expecting the customary dig, the declaration of a new, romantic rival. But a hurricane, while thrilling, leaves devastation in its wake. Brooke continued, her voice softening. I realized that the perfect match isn't the one who completes your story. It's the one who helps you start a new, truer one. She gestured toward the far entrance, and everyone craned their necks, expecting a billionaire, a mogul, or a prince. A figure entered, but he wasn't tall or impeccably dressed in a bespoke suit. He was of average height, wearing a simple, elegant navy tuxedo. He had salt and pepper hair, kind eyes crinkled at the corners, and an air of complete, unshakable composure. He was not famous. He was not wealthy, at least not in the way the Forresters defined wealth. He was simply solid. Tonight, Brooke said, her voice filled with a tenderness no one had heard before, I want to introduce you to Elias Thorne. Elias, an architect specializing in sustainable, low-income housing, walked slowly towards the stage, offering a gentle, almost shy nod to the gawking crowd. He was carrying not a bouquet of roses, but a single potted succulent, a symbol of resilience and quiet growth. The gasp that swept the room was audible. Who? Ridge's face was a study in confusion. Thorne? Is he related to Thorne? Steffi shook her head, thoroughly bewildered. I've never seen him. He's not a mogul. He's not even. L.A. Brooke met Elias halfway up the steps, and he took her hand, not with ownership, but with a supportive clasp. Elias and I met 6 months ago, not at a gala, but at a board meeting for a children's arts program downtown, Brooke explained. He didn't know I was a Logan, a Forrester, or the vamp of the valley. He just knew I was a woman who was passionate about funding art classes. She turned to Elias, and the change in her demeanor was profound. The usual dramatic fire in her eyes was replaced by a soft, clear light. When Elias and I talked, we didn't talk about Forrester creations or scandals or who was sleeping with whom, she said, tilting her head toward the crowd, including her ex-husband, with a gentle, knowing humor. We talked about clean energy. We talked about structural integrity. We talked about building foundations that last. Elias finally spoke, his voice calm, deep and utterly lacking in the theatrical bravado the crowd was accustomed to. Brooke is the most astonishing mind I've ever encountered. She sees the world not as it is, but as it should be, and she has the courage to build it. Ridge felt a deep, unsettling pang, not of jealousy, but of loss. Elias had given Brooke something Ridge never could. Objectivity. Elias saw Brooke's mind and her potential, not just her beauty or her role in the Forrester/Logan saga. Brooke began to outline her shocking realization, the core of her new, perfect match. For my entire life, I thought love had to be difficult to be worthy. I thought if it wasn't an uphill battle, if it didn't involve sacrificing everything, that it wasn't destiny. But Elias taught me that destiny isn't a pre-written drama. It's a choice for peace. She recounted a simple, pivotal moment. She had been stressed over a minor work crisis, pacing her living room, waiting for the inevitable emergency phone call to Ridge, even though they were separated. Elias had walked in, not with advice, but with blueprints for a small, functional library he was building for a remote town in Nepal. He simply sat on the floor, spreading out the complex, elegant drawings, and started to explain the weight-bearing calculations. He didn't try to fix my problem, Brooke recalled, a slight tremor in her voice. He just gave me something stable to focus on, something beautiful and completely removed from the chaos. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the drama. I was just the audience to something solid.